Well, firstly, I'd just like to thank you, Obehi, for having me. My name is Shara Campbel, for those who don't know, and I am the co-founder of Beauty and the Beast Publishing, which is an international multi-award winning book publishing and media services company. And we specifically work with the underserved communities, those that are not, or I would say, atypically from the industry. So they're not don't have any connections within the industry, but are very keen to have their voices heard. So we're here to amplify those voices and bring those writers into the writing industry, which we've been very, very successful to date. In the last, we are in our third year, so we're entering our third year. We're not quite on the third year yet. We don't hit that mark till the end of the year, thankfully. So we've sort of got this time to kind of make up and not play with, but definitely focus on the areas that we want to really sort of improve on between now and the end of the year. And within that time, we have successfully won 6 business awards, which I'm very proud of. I never thought I would be, to be honest. I mean, when we didn't have any, it didn't really matter, but now we have them. I'm really proud that we do. And we gained 5 of them just last year in 2022. Which I'm really sort of, really overwhelmed and quite pleased. So it's good to know that we're doing some great work and we're being acknowledged and achieving such accolades for the hard work that we do. And I can really say I've never known anything harder. But it's been a really enjoyable experience, and I'm pleased that we're here and still doing it.
That's good. That's great. That's great. It's good when sometimes somebody recognize what you're doing and appreciate it. That is always lovely. It's always
Yeah.
a kind of a push for you to do more.
It is. I mean, especially like the first one that we received, it was seemed to be after that one we seemed to receive quite a succession of them. But the first one that we received the same uh, medal and award that another person who had also been in that project and that sort of a business event. They won it, and we had spent the whole day sort of acknowledging them and like, you know, praising them for their achievement. To find out a bit later on that evening that we had also won the same thing, I just couldn't believe it. It was like so unexpected, but like so very much welcomed as well.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Thanks for the good work that you're doing. It is very
Thank
important.
you. Yeah.
I don't know if I told you the last time that this project, actually the one that we are working on, the African Diaspora project, the research that I
Hmm.
carried out here in Verona, which had to do with the presence of Africans in northern Italy. At the end of the research, of course, we lasted for like 5 years, more or less. Actually, more than that, because right now I'm still collecting more information about the community, but no longer limited to the African diaspora in Italy, but sort of global in this sense. What I found is that it is very important that we share our experiences. It is important also that we recognize what is happening in the community, because it's not just about us as individual, it's about the community. That is very important. So for the fact that people are coming to appreciate what you're doing, it is something that needs to be encouraged. Because I repeat again, if it is left for one person to do, we cannot do it, because community is a people, it's a collective experience. So we need to be doing more in that area and be focusing on that area, that it is all of us that is involved in building this big machine that, of course, we are all part of. So I really want to
Yeah.
appreciate those who appreciate your work. That is a
Most
good thing.
definitely.
Mhm.
I really agree with that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because this was a conversation I had just most recently at a live business event that I did. And we spoke about that quite extensively. And that would very much align with the new focus of business that we're entering in as part of the current work that we do. And it's so important, like you say, to tell those stories as a collective, because we are part of the global majority. I mean, we are that. And as such, we are finding that those stories need to be told, the historical ones, the present ones, the futuristic ones that will happen. It's really, really important, but because the stories that have happened, we invented everything, and all those important stories do not get told, in mainstream society. So it's important that we tell them, because those people are at some point will no longer be with us, and we won't be able to capture those stories if we don't start doing that work now. So it's really, really important, like you say.
Thank you for that. You see, you really touched something there. There was a time I interviewed somebody. Of course, this was in UK. I interviewed the person in UK. Then how the Obehi podcast work is that as I'm interviewing you now, when I finish, and ask you, do you know some other persons who I can also interview to bring value to the community? Then, of course, you will tell me this person whom I will then connect to interview. Then I will move to the next one. That is how we connect. That is how we have a lot of people, hundreds of people that we have interviewed here. So after I've interviewed this individual who then connected me to another person, then of course I interview him. Then it was very sad for me to note that he called me after a couple of weeks that the person I've interviewed had died. So that was really painful for me. But if you come to think of it, just to agree with what you're saying, this is what life is. We are not living forever. Because if we make the mistake of thinking that the life revolves around us, then we will lose. But if we understood that it is not always about us, but it's not always about us as individual, it's about us as a group, as a collective, then we didn't lose anything. Because whatever it is that we have contributed, it is going on. Other people will continue the conversation. So in that sense, this community work is very important. It is important that we realize that it's not just about the individual, me, just me. No, it is us. All right. Just now we are talking about the demography that you are concentrating on, which is the African diaspora, or the people of African descent. So I'd like you to spend some time on how do you engage with your people. No, before you get there, I would like to ask a question in the line of how do you see the value of books, of publication in the African diaspora community? This is very important for me before we move into the engagement.
Yeah, again, our history just tells us exactly how important these stories are. Our history is one that is unique. We're spread all over the world, and in most places we were there before many others. And as a result of that, again, those stories are so important to be shared. If people have access to that information, you know, they should be welcomed within our society. Again, just going back to the mainstream of schooling and the fact that, these important lessons are not being taught even in our own generations, mainstream, and again, it's really important that we have our own collections of literature that we can refer to, for that added learning that we need, that's so vital for us. And it's slightly unfair the way that this works, because if you look at other other educational practices, if you go to other countries, it's predominant. And when you look at the Western educational system, which is where a lot of our diaspora are from, or play, or are living, very little of that is taught within those school, educational sectors. So I do think it's something that needs to be looked at. And again, it's not something that we probably need to ask, a mainstream society to indoctrinate into their practices. It's something that we should already have access to, as a diaspora, that we can refer to, as part of our added learning, if as well as an addition to our added learning, as it were, because we are taught these stories as we are growing up and as we're learning within our own individual households, etc. But again, there are gaps in that teaching as well, and in that learning, as from what we know of our history as well. Lots of us have had babies, when we've been considerably young, so we're still learning, but again, those materials need to be available for us to be able to draw from, at any time.
That is so
It's quite
important.
crucial, actually. Very, very crucial, actually, to our way of life, our culture. It affects everything. It has a great impact. If we don't know where we're from, or we don't know where we're about, or what to avoid and where we should be, the direction we should be going, then we're very much lost as a people, and that hope there is lost. So we need to do something about that, and quite urgently.